The sport of rugby arguably produces some of the greatest hybrid athletes. You've got the likes of Tupu benching 200 kilo for reps, Lewis Rees-Zammit clocking top speeds of over 24 mile an hour, and our buddy Bodie Barrett knocked out a 4.12 Bronco. But the best part isn't that they purely excel in one area, it's that they can hold their own across the board in a multitude of different physical qualities. They're strong, they're fit, they're fast, and they're powerful, which begs the question, as a rugby player, how strong do I need to be? How fast do I need to be? How fit do I need to be? Well, in this video, we're going to be detailing our 8 minimum standards that all athletes should be chasing, whether you're trying to chase a pro contract, step up at your club, or simply enjoy your rugby by playing the best rugby possible. These 8 benchmark standards will give you an ultimate guide to becoming an athletic freak. Now, while some S&C coaches may argue that setting some benchmark standards is not needed and you should purely focus on getting stronger or getting fitter, here's why I disagree with that. After working with over 300 athletes, one of the biggest things that holds rugby players back time and time again is actually having direction with their training, knowing where they need to spend their time, effort and energy in the gym to see a transfer over to performances on the pitch. And that is exactly why I created these standards. These standards have been formulated from the scientific research and my own anecdotal evidence, and this is going to be the level 3 benchmark, which is that minimum standard. The level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5 will be outlined in a full document that you can download below. All you need to do is hit the link in the description and that will give you our full comprehensive standards. But let's kick it off with the level 3 and the ones that you should be chasing if you want to step up as an athletic freak. Now, these standards are going to cover your core 4. That is going to be your strength, your speed, your power, and your conditioning. And we're going to kick it off with the mother of all qualities, and that is strength. I believe that getting strong solves all the problems being weak creates, and that's actually a hell of a lot. And it's why it's one of the first things that we prioritize early in our athletes' development if they want to step up as the go-to player on the pitch. Now, when it comes to strength, we're going to split this into 4 categories, and the first up being our lower body knee dominant strength. Now, the exercise that we use for our lower body knee dominant strength is going to be the back squat. Now, not only is the back squat going to be one of the best exercises that you can use to improve your lower body force production, the movement itself has been positively correlated with 5-meter sprint times and jump height, which have been correlated to improvements of on-pitch performance. Now, this doesn't mean that you just purely need to turn into a powerlifter and solely focus on the number on the bar, but what it does mean is that you need to bring that squat strength up to a certain standard. And that standard, regardless of what position you actually play on the pitch, should be around 1.6 times body weight to hit that minimum threshold, which is going to be vital for performance. And for you females, we want to be aiming for 1.1 times your body weight. So if you're a 100 kilo male, you want to be aiming for a 160 kilo back squat as that minimum standard. And if you're a 70 kilo female, you want to be aiming for roughly 80 kilos on your back squat. Now, I know you rugby players love a box squat, but remember, this isn't the numbers for a box squat. We want to be thinking about full range of motion, which is going to be the ATG squat. Now, if you struggle like me, getting down into those positions, you can elevate your heels to help travel through that range of motion needed to develop that full range strength. Now, I'm not actually saying that the box squat is a bad choice for rugby players, but one thing that I am saying, it is that it's massively over prioritized. You need to remember that strength is gained in the range it's trained, and if you're purely training partial range of motion like a box squat, you're going to be missing out on getting into the deeper ranges which are vital for athletic performance. So while this may have its time and place, if you've not hit the minimum performance standard of that 1.6, you may want to consider using full range of motion first before jumping into something partial like a box squat. So the next performance standard that you should be chasing, and this will complete your lower body strength standards, is going to be a hinge pattern. Now, the squat is going to tick off your anterior chain and the hinge is going to dominate your posterior chain. So it's vital that we get standards for both of these movements to make sure that we're getting a full, complete leg development. Now, the exercise that we're actually going to use for the hinge may shock some of you. It is going to be the trap bar deadlift. And I know what some of you are thinking, the trap bar deadlift isn't actually a real hinge, and some of you may be rejoiced at the fact that you can actually use a trap bar because conventional deadlifts are the worst for your back. But the reason why we found the trap bar deadlift to be the most effective hinge exercise for our athletes is the ability to do this through the entire calendar year. One of the things that we've found with athletes is that rugby is a very, very long season. You may be in the thick of it right now. You may have played 10 games. You may have played 20 games. Some of you may have had the luxury of playing 30 games, and it is a long old season. And what you've got to realize is that when you're developing strength, it is going to be a time game. You cannot fast track it. So you need to make sure that you pick movements that you can do for the full year. And the trap bar deadlift, we've been found to be able to do that. When your body's feeling beaten up towards the end of the season, because of the way that the trap bar deadlift is set up, it actually lowers the amount of fatigue compared to a conventional deadlift, which is exactly why we use it. Now, the standard that we should be aiming for when it comes to the trap bar deadlift is a 2 times bodyweight trap bar for men and a 1.5 times bodyweight trap bar for females. But there's one problem that you may run into, which is exactly what I've run into here, is that you may not have access to a typical high handle trap bar. Your trap bar may resemble something like this, which is what we consider a low handle trap bar, where the handles are going to be typical to where a conventional deadlift would be off the floor, which means that the strength numbers that you should be chasing on this variation will be slightly lower compared to the high handle trap bar, which finishes here. But whichever trap bar you got, make sure that you progress and you get strong in this hinge pattern. Next up, we move on to number 3 and the first of our upper body standards, and that is going to be our upper body push pattern. Now, the exercise that we use for that is everyone's favorite, the bench press. The reason why we use the bench press is not only is it the most superior exercise in the gym and it is the biggest flex on Instagram, it is because bigger bench presses have been correlated with better players. And as you climb up the ranks and you look at the research, every division that you step up, the upper body strength numbers come up with it. And that is why we're going to use the bench press. And the minimum standard that you should be aiming for is that 1.1 times body weight as a male and 0.75 times as a female. While we use the bench press as our level 3 standard, that doesn't mean that you should neglect all your other upper body pressing exercise in place for this. Remember, your shoulder travels through a full 180 degrees of flexion. So you want to make sure that you're strengthening it through that, because your sport is quite chaotic. You're not in control of where you need to produce force from. So you need to pick a wide range of exercises that are going to protect you to be able to produce force in a variety of different angles. That's why we should be aiming for 72% of your best bench press in the overhead press. You should be aiming for 91% of your best bench press in your incline press, and you should be aiming for 117% of your best bench press in a dip, and that's going to be added weight plus body weight. So while we chase that level 3 standard, make sure that your training complements the full 180 degrees if you want to become the best athlete possible. Moving on to the final strength standard that we should be chasing, and that is going to be your upper body pull. Now, it's vital that we balance our pushing with our pulling, because as a wise man once said, Mr. Ed Cohen, you'll never meet a strong man with a weak back. So the standard that we want to be aiming for on the chin up is a 1.3 times body weight chin up for men, and at least 3 full chin-ups for females. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking, that could be quite far away. When I first started, it took me over 2 years to do my own first unassisted chin-up. First up, we've got an isometric chin-up where you're simply just gonna jump up to the top and hold yourself over the bar. You're gonna hold for as long as you can till your arms give out and you have to drop down. Once you've done that and you've got to that point, you're going to head over to a lat pull down machine and you're going to bang out 12 full reps, making sure that we get the arm fully extended and that bar touching just below the chin. Once you've built up to a point where you can actually tolerate that, we're then going to move into an eccentric method, which is going to be a negative chin up. Now, you may have done these in the past, but people have said lower down with control. We're going to give you some specific guidelines that you can use. You're going to jump up to the top of the bar and you're going to lower down for a count of 8 seconds. Throughout this 8 seconds, you want to make sure that your speed is the same throughout the full range of movement, and you lower to a dead hang. You're then going to jump up and you're going to perform up to 4 reps of this in a set. When you can no longer hit the 8-second threshold on the way down, so you jump up and you just fall too quick, you're going to stop the set. You're going to go back over to a lat pull down machine. You can perform a set of 10 reps with the same control technique that you used in stage 0. When you can perform 12 reps across 4 sets of stage 1, you're going to move on to stage 2, which is going to be a isometric method. Each progression of this will increase the total time under tension, which means that the exercise do get harder and harder, but the return is the benefit of you being able to nail your first chin up. So stage 2 is going to start similar to stage 1, where you jump up, you're going to lower down, but you're going to hold in the top quarter for 8 seconds. You're going to hold on. Once the 8 seconds is up, you're going to lower down to halfway, and you're going to hold for 8 seconds there, and then you're going to hold for 8 seconds in the bottom quarter, and then you're going to lower down for the full rep. That means that every single rep is going to be 24 seconds long, which is going to be tough. It's going to tax your grip, it's going to suck, and you're going to have to fight. The isometrics are super useful for teaching you to produce force through that full range of motion, which then means you should, after being able to complete 12 reps over 4 sets of stage 2, you should be able to complete your first full chin up. So that's your 4 strength standards that we should be chasing, and they make up 50% of our total minimum baseline that you should be aiming for as an athlete. If you're not sure on how to structure your strength days, we have an upper body template here and we have a lower body template here that you can steal to design your own sessions. Now we're on to everyone's favorite, conditioning. You need to remember that the game of rugby spans 80 minutes, so it doesn't matter how strong you are, how powerful you are, how fast you are. If you're not conditioned, you're not going to be able to demonstrate your ability to express those skills across the course of an 80-minute game. Now, while some people may purely use a Bronco time to estimate their conditioning, we use something called MASS. Now, MASS stands for maximal aerobic speed. The MASS score is the lowest running speed at which maximal oxygen uptake is achieved, representing the point where aerobic energy production is at its peak. And this number actually allows us to design effective conditioning programs based on where we're currently at, not some arbitrary Bronco score. Now, the level 3 standard that we should be aiming for is 4.2 meters per second as your MASS score. And to calculate this from your Bronco is pretty simple. Number 1, get an accurate test score of what your Bronco is, and please measure out the cones appropriately. Don't cut yourself short or put the distances too long. Make sure you just take a tape measure or whatever you need to actually measure the 20-meter mark, the 40-meter mark, and the 60-meter mark. And then you simply just need to go to the description, click on the Google sheet that we've added, input your score, and it will give your MASS score based on your Bronco time. And that way, not only can you understand how fit you are, you can design appropriate conditioning programs to get that number higher if you haven't hit that 4.2 benchmark that we're looking at. For number 6 and 7 of our benchmarks, we're going to be moving over towards power. Now, power is simply force times velocity, aka how much force can you produce in a short space of time. And when you go up the levels in rugby, this is normally the difference maker between the goods and the greats. Now, if you are struggling to hit the level 3 strength standards that we outlined at the start of this video, that is where I start first, because being strong solves the problems that being weak creates. And one of those problems is normally producing a lot of force fast, because if you don't have a baseline level of force production to begin with, then you're not going to have a lot to work with when you need to produce it in a short time frame. So get strong first. But while building those strength standards, you need to be making sure that you are actually working on the velocity aspect too, which is going to be your plyometrics. Now, this doesn't mean totally neglecting any power work. It means that the emphasis should be placed on getting strong first. But if you want to understand where you're at from a power perspective, we use 2 tests. So number 6 of our performance standards is going to be the counter movement jump. The counter movement jump is one of the simplest things that you can do. Stick your hands on your hips, take the stance that you think you're going to jump highest in, and do just that. Now, you may be thinking, how do I actually measure that? Well, you go to the App Store, you download an app called My Jump Lab, and you just put the video in there, you work through the instructions, and it will give you a score. And what you should be aiming for is that 40 centimeter mark for males, and around 30 centimeters for females, being that level 3 benchmark standard that we're looking at. But remember, as an athlete, not only do you need to produce force fast vertically, you also need to do the same horizontally. So while number 6 of the benchmarks is the CMJ, number 7 is going to be the broad jump. Now, the broad jump is going to be pretty standard, much like the CMJ. You're going to take your desired jump stance. The only difference is you're going to have a little bit of an arm swing to see how far you can get. So you're just going to come down, you're going to jump as far as you can, and you're going to measure from where your heel touches, not your toe. So you're going to need to measure a start line where your toes are going to start behind, and then you're going to have to measure where your heel lands, and you're going to look at the distance that you've jumped. The distance that you want to be aiming to jump as a male is roughly 210 centimeters, and as a female is 160 centimeters for the broad jump. While we've got the absolute jump height and jump distance for both the CMJ and broad jump, the hidden metric that you want to be looking at is peak power. Now, if you have an athlete that jumps 40 centimeters and weighs 50 kilos, or an athlete that jumps 40 centimeters and maybe weighs 100 kilos, it's clear to see which one is more impressive and which one actually produces more power. It's the heavier athlete jumping the same height. Now, this may be pretty hard to track, but it's why we've created the tracker in the description. So all you need to do is get your jump height, get your body weight, insert it into the tracker, and what you're going to have is a peak power value for both the broad jump and the CMJ. And this can be used to track changes across the course of the season if you are looking to manipulate your body weight as well. So you're not just kind of jumping higher, but dropping weight. You're actually improving that thing that we're looking at, and that is that lower body power metric. Now, the final metric that you should be chasing, and to round off our 8 minimum performance standards, is going to be down to speed, and we're going to be looking at your 10-meter sprint, and we want to be hitting sub 2 seconds for your 10-meter sprint. Now, if you're not too sure where to start with this, we've created a video that details 6 key things that you need in your S&C program to become a faster athlete. So start there, work your way through that video, incorporate the things in the video, and you should notice that you hit that minimum benchmark standard of 2 seconds on a 10-meter sprint. And there we go. Those are the 8 benchmark standards that you should be aiming for. And if you hit those, you will slot into any amateur team as one of the most physically gifted athletes there. So let me know in the comments, where do you stack up? Where do you fall short? Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.